Welcome! So today we're going to start a new unit. As you guys can see, you have a guest teacher because I'm at home taking care of a sick child, but I am also feeling under the weather. So you may hear me sniffle a bit. I do apologize. So the first things first, I do want to show you guys how to get to our new unit. If you scroll down, you will see that I have highlighted in black this time the Pythagorean theorem. You're going to click on that, and it will take you to our unit page, where you will scroll down to get to your assignment, which is called February 1/2, finding the missing side of a right triangle. So we have started this work but Thursday and Friday after our quick check. We kind of did this in that little video that you guys watched about equations with a square. So you guys have some familiarity with it. So what you should be doing right now is completing your warm-up. So go ahead, pause the video, and complete your warm-up. Alright, once you have finished doing your warm-up, you will then go to the next slide to check your answers. These are the answers to the warm-up. Email me if you have any questions. Let's get started. Today we're going to be talking about introducing the Pythagorean theorem. So here's a little math joke. You may be right, Pythagoras, but everybody's going to laugh if you call it a hypotenuse. I know you guys probably don't understand that quite yet, but we're going to talk about what a hypotenuse is. Basically, hypotenuse is a really funny word for what it is. Not funny, but just nonsense. Okay, so in this, with Pythagorean theorem, you can use a calculator. So you can either click this link, which will take you to another tab, or you can use the link, the little button up above. So I suggest use this one because it's embedded, and then you won't have to go from tab to tab. Because really what you should be doing for this is really split screening your Desmos with my video. So for example, this is not your video, but because I'm currently recording your video, you would want to split screen with a video on one side and your Desmos on the other, so that you can see what I'm doing in the video and the examples, and then following along on Desmos. So, bring that up. Our objective for today is I will be able to find the missing side of a right triangle using the Pythagorean theorem. Our success criteria is I can find the hypotenuse of a right triangle, and I can find a leg of a right triangle. The vocabulary terms that we're going to be talking about today are Pythagorean theorem, right triangle, hypotenuse, square root, and inverse operations. Let's go ahead and get started. Pythagoras, what? So what is the Pythagorean theorem? In 2 minutes, type as many similarities you notice about these three images. So what do you notice about these three triangles? As many as you can, put them in this box and press share with class. Once you press share with class, you should be able to see other people's responses. So go ahead, pause the video, and do it for 2 minutes. Alright, welcome back. Hopefully you have seen lots of different things that people picked out. Maybe you picked out that they are all purple. Maybe you picked out that they all have whole numbers. Maybe you picked out that they all have right angles. These little boxes are right angles. And that's kind of the most important piece of what you should have picked out, is that these triangles all have right triangles. So with Pythagorean theorem, this only works on triangles that are right triangles. And a right triangle is a triangle that has a right angle in it. All right, make sure you get out your notes. You want to title it Pythagorean Theorem. Here I have a copy of what your notes should look like. So you need to title it Pythagorean Theorem, and then I want you to sketch out this image, just like what it shows in the notes. So go ahead, pause this video, make sure you have what I have in this notes on your paper. You want to draw out this triangle. You want to draw the right angle by drawing a little square here and point to it saying that it's a right angle. Then you're going to draw a dotted line because the side across from the right angle is called the hypotenuse. And we use the letter C to represent the hypotenuse. I know you guys are going to say, hypotenuse what? But as long as you know it's like hypotenuse. Okay, and then the other sides are called legs. So we use the letter A and the letter B for this. It really doesn't matter which one's which. So if you want to write A/B, go ahead and do that. All right, pause the video if you need more time, and come with me to slide 8. On slide 8, we have some information. So the information that you need to add to your notes are that the longest side is called the hypotenuse, which is also called side C, and it's the right angle always points to the hypotenuse. So you'll see in the image that the right angle is pointing to the hypotenuse. And then the other two sides are called legs, and we call them side A and side B. So if you look at your notes, this is how we put it in our notes. We wrote hypotenuse equals the longest slide, and it's the right angle points to it. And then the other two sides are called legs. So go ahead, make sure you have that down. Go ahead and pause the video if you need more time to copy it down. Great. So we are now on slide 9. The Pythagorean theorem, what is that? So the Pythagorean theorem says, for any right triangle, the sum of the areas of the two small squares is equal to the area of the larger. But don't worry, we have formulas. So in your notes, look at how I wrote it right here. I just wrote down the formula. And so the formula for Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Or we could write it as c squared equals a squared plus b squared. Does this seem familiar from our challenge questions on Thursday and Friday? If you think it seems familiar, it's because this is what we were doing in that Desmos. Go ahead and pause the video. Make sure you have this written down. All right, so our first success criteria is success criteria number 1 is called I can find the hypotenuse of a right triangle. So remember, the hypotenuse is the longest side, and it's also the side that's across from the right angle. So as long as you find the right angle will point to the hypotenuse. Let's go ahead and show an example here. So I have my example that I've drawn out on my notes, and I want to point out that in my notes I have example 1. I drew out this triangle that I have here, which means that A is worth 6 and B is worth 8 and X is C. So I'm actually trying to find C. I'm trying to find the hypotenuse. So I have written the formula down, and it has a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And then I have space that says work, 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 answer. So instead of you writing down work, 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 answer, you're actually going to write down what the work is. Okay? This is important. I want you to write down exactly what I write down, instead of saying work, 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 work. Something that I might add to these notes that aren't in it is I would add the right angle and how it points to C. Okay, let's actually go ahead and try this one. Let's do it. So I have my triangle here. What I'm going to do, let me pull it up so that you guys have a good space. So I write down my formula, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And so now my first part of my work is going to be substituting in those values that I do know. I know that a equals 6 and b equals 8. So that's what I'm going to substitute in. So instead of writing a squared, I'm going to write 6 squared plus, instead of writing b, I'm writing 8 squared equals c squared. I actually don't know c, so I'm going to leave it as c squared, or you could even write it as x squared. It's up to you, whatever you prefer. Alright, so now my next step is I'm actually going to figure out what some of these are. So you guys have a calculator that you can use. My screen is actually frozen, so I can't press that button while I'm in this edit mode. So you guys can open up the calculator. I will just have to do with what I have. So I know that 6 squared, so if I put that in the calculator, I will get 36 plus, and then 8 squared, if I put that in the calculator, I will get 64. Okay, so that's my next step. So I have 36 plus 64 equals x squared. Okay, now is my next work piece is actually adding 36 plus 64. So if I add 36 plus 64, if I put that in the calculator, I will get 100. So 100 equals x squared. Okay, and then my final thing is I need to use the inverse operations to get rid of that square. If you guys remember from the video on Thursday, Friday, this is what we talked about. We're going to take the square root of both sides. By taking the square root of both sides, that squared cancels out, and I'm left with x. And then the square root of 100 is actually equal to 10. So my hypotenuse is equal to 10. Okay? So my last piece is where the answer is. My answer is x equals 10. Okay? I don't have a label for this example, so I'm just going to write in my box x equals 10, or you could just write 10. Either way is fine. So this it should be on your paper, and it should be on your paper where the work section says. So if it isn't on your paper, pause this video and make sure it's on your paper. Alright, join me on slide 12. So the thing about hypotenuse and Pythagorean theorem is that that's a lot of steps. Even though it's simple, it's still a lot of steps to make sure that you are putting the right thing into the formula correctly. So here are some ways to check if you're correct. The two questions that you'll ask yourself is, the first one is the hypotenuse the longest length? So if you notice on these three triangles, the hypotenuse is always the longest length. 6.7 compared to 6 and 3, 12.3 compared to 6 and 5, 9.2 compared to 9 and 2. So they are always the larger number. Another cool thing about the hypotenuse is that the hypotenuse actually has to be shorter than when you add the legs, or a plus b. So if I add for my first triangle 6 plus 3, I get 9. And 9, or 6.7, is less than 9. So that is correct. Okay, for my second triangle, I have 6 plus 5. 6 plus 5 gives me 11. Is 12.5 less than 11? It's not. So this one's done incorrectly. So let's see. This one is correct. This one is wrong. Because 12.3 is not less than 11. Okay, let's see if our last one is correct. So 9 plus 2 equals 10. Is 9.2 less than 10? Yes, it is. So this one is correct. Okay, so how do you put that on your notes? Well, let me show you how. Over here, I just wrote exactly what I wrote down. So how to check my answer? 1, is the hypotenuse C the longest leg? 2, is the hypotenuse C shorter than A plus B? All right, let's go ahead and do example number 2. Here's example number 2. I don't have your notes page here, but you do need to write your notes page just like I had it in the first example, where you wrote where you draw out the sketch and then you write down every single step I have. Okay, so let's do this one. Okay, we're going to do this one together, and then the next one you have, you're going to try it on your own. So, first thing first is you want to draw that triangle. Second thing is you want to show your work. So, we have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So you want to write that into your notebook. Then we want to substitute in our known values. So I know that a equals 10 and b equals 9. If you put them backwards, that's totally fine. The legs can be either way. The important piece is that we know that x is going to be separate. So a equals 10, so I'm putting 10 in for a and writing down that squared. Plus b squared, which is 9 squared, equals c squared. Okay, now I can evaluate it. So 10 squared gives me 100, plus 9 squared gives me 81, equals c squared. If I add those together, 100 plus 81 gives me 181, equals c squared. All right, to get rid of this squared, I need to do the square root on both sides. So that cancels out, and I'm left with c equals, let me grab a calculator. All right, so the square root of 181, we are able to use the calculator, so it's actually equal to 13.45, but we want to round it to the nearest tenth. Okay, so 13.45 would actually round to the 13.5. So that's what you put in here, 13.5. But this is what you should have in your notebook. All right, let's go to the next one. You guys are going to try it on your own. So draw this triangle, try it on your own, and then you're going to check your answer with me. Pause your video. All right, welcome back. So you have, you should have had something similar to what I have written here in your notebook. So I have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And then I substituted in, and I got 5 squared plus 12 squared equals c squared. I evaluated the squares, and I got 25 plus 144 equals c squared. Finally, I added those two together, and I got 169 equals c squared. Then I did the inverse operation, did square roots, and I got the square root of 169, which is equal to 13. So my answer is c equals 13. All right, let's check your paper. How are you a level 5 star? So I want you to put a star by each step below that you showed and solved correctly. So the goal is to get 5 stars. So put a star next to that you wrote the formula. Put a star next to when you substituted in the values in correct places. Put a star next to where you showed that a squared and b squared are after simplifying. Step 4, put a star next to where you showed on doing the square by putting the square root symbol on both sides. And put a star if you got the correct answer. If you didn't get 5 stars, tell me why. So if I look at this last example, let me go ahead and start putting stars next to it. So I'm putting a star next to my formula. I'm putting a star next to my substitution. I'm putting a star next to my when I simplified the expressions. I'm putting a star next to the square root. I'm putting a star next to my final answer. Did you get 5 stars? If not, what can you do to get 5 stars next time? Okay, that's it for video 1. Right now you're going to do the practice activity. So you're going to take this worksheet that you have in paper. If you're at home, you'll want to press this link. This will take you to the worksheet in Canvas. You're going to only do the first side. So the first side is finding the missing length to the nearest tenth. On the first side, it's always the hypotenuse. So you'll want to show all of your work here. Okay, so it's 8 questions. You want to get started, try to get as many done as you can. If you have questions, make sure you ask, email me. I know I won't be able to get to you soon, but hopefully I can get those answers on Wednesday and answer them then. Okay, check with your neighbor first. Don't be afraid to help each other out, just at your pod though. Remember to show your steps and thinking, and then always reflect on your answer. Does it make sense? If you finish the front, try working on the back, but pay close attention to what's missing. That's the end of video 1. After you finish practicing that worksheet, that front side, you're going to watch a second video that will be a little shorter for you guys to find the success criteria number 2, which is how to find the missing leg of a right triangle. Okay, you're going to spend about 10 to 15 minutes on the worksheet and then start the second video. Your goal today is to make sure that you have watched both videos and taken notes.